Hello, welcome to It's Just Perfume, a Luckyscent podcast. My name is Steven Guntarski, and I have to tell you, over the years that I've been with Luckyscent and Scent Bar, I just have the sense that all roads lead back to Sarah Horowitz-Thran, who is our guest today. I really think of you as the godmother of perfume in Southern California. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
That just means so much to me. And yeah, in our conversation even earlier, it feels like forever. I mean, I was in my 20s. It was the 90s when I started creating fragrance here.
Unbelievable. So many people who come into Scent Bar end up working at this store and joining our team, and also budding perfumers that come into the store for inspiration and just to smell and learn. All have stories because most of them have worked for you at some point. That's what I mean when all roads lead back to Sarah Horowitz-Thran. So this is very special, and it's lucky to have you as a resource, to say the least, in the world of perfume in California, because as we know, it's a very, very small world, perfume. And
True.
In terms of training, more traditional, conventional means of education, they're not easy to access in the United States. So the fact that you sit here, you have this amazing business, and you're an accomplished perfumer, I really would love to know how this all got started.
Well, first, I want to say thank you so much for having me, because Luckyscent and Franco and Adam have been a part of my journey since Luckyscent started. So I feel very honored to be with you, Steve, and to have watched your journey and how you've grown. It's been so incredible. And
I'm just so thrilled you're here today.
No, it's true. And what you said about the other perfumers that have had the privilege of having them apprentice me, work with me, and then fly. You want to talk about the beginning, and I'd love to. My father always said when I was little that his highest goal was to give us both roots and wings. And, then he joked later that they did too good a job because I grew up on the East Coast and I moved out to California.
Me too.
But that's how I feel about a lot of the young perfumers that I've had the opportunity to meet, and that have apprenticed with me, that have volunteered with me, that have worked for me, with me, and then have gone out into the world and done their own projects. Like it gives me so much joy to see what they're accomplishing. So it's an amazing thing. Thank you. How I started.
Yeah.
I was from the East Coast, grew up in New York, and went to college in Boston, as you know. I think we chatted about that.
We both have our Boston connections.
Yes. And I went to Emerson, and their freshman year this was like 1989, so clearly I'm aging myself, but that's okay. I was killing time in between classes, so I went to Newbury Street, which is a store that beautiful street, shopping. And
I remember Newbury Comics very well.
Oh, that was the best.
Yeah.
And not too far away, actually, between Exeter and Fairfield, like the middle of that street, where it's like more, still very artistic at sort of the middle. I always say Newbury is like, the beginning of it is more like Rodeo Drive, and the end is like Venice, but toward the middle you get like Melrose and kind of artsy. And there was a store there called Essence, where they had an old apothecary with all of these oils. And it was, it was the late 80s. Enya was playing. There were crystals around. It was spiritual. And when I walked in, the man who owned it said, "May I anoint you?" And I was like, I don't know what that is, but yes,
but
you can do that.
I'm up for it.
And he said, and I've told this before, but it's so crazy. He said these words to me that changed my life, like my life before that day and my life after that day. And I'm sure he said to everyone that walked in, but I said, what do you do there? And he said, well, we create custom fragrance because you're so unique. Shouldn't your fragrance be? And of course, I was 18, 19-year-old girl, and I thought, I am unique. My fragrance should be.
Of course.
And I missed my next class. I sat at that blending bar with they had essential oils, they had fragrance oils, and I made my first fragrance that day with him. And I became obsessed. And actually, one of my fragrances that I have in one of my collections now, Evolution collection, is called The Origin Story because it's based on that first fragrance that day. And I fell in love. I read everything I could on perfume. He eventually gave me a job, like as much out of pity, it probably is that I was so enthusiastic. And I worked there through college. And the year that I was graduating college, he decided he wanted to sell the business and move out of state. And I had not taken one business class. I was performing arts major with a philosophy and religions minor. So not ready for business. But I thought, this is how I keep doing the thing that I have fallen in love with. So myself and Dawn Spencer Hurwitz, who you may know, she's an amazing perfumer in Colorado, but she worked there also. And the two of us pooled our resources and bought the business when we were 22.
That is incredible. And how long were you there running this business?
I stayed in Boston another 2 years running that business with Dawn. And then I was 24 and I had always wanted to move to California. And that last winter was bitter cold.
Yeah.
And that winter, I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I knew I had developed my own technique in perfume I call it the fragrance journey.
Okay.
Where it was this very sort of spiritual experience, one-on-one of just designing a custom fragrance based on someone's personal life history, the things that they've, what makes them feel the most who they are. And so when I moved to California, that was my vision. I created a business called Creative Centralization. Right. Which was based on Shakti Gawain's book, Creative Visualization, how you could create your reality, but through fragrance. Yeah. And I started doing custom blends one at a time when I moved to California in 1994.
Oh, my God. When you first started working at Essences and he had these blends, so I'm guessing some of them were from essential oils, but was he also working with aroma chemicals?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so he worked with some, so he didn't work directly with fragrance houses, but there are companies, and there still are, that would buy a material, like Rain or China Rain or Gardenia from... he would buy it from a company that would sell it 1 pound at a time. Okay. And then those companies obviously bought it from larger places. Yeah. And that's where I learned.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of visualizing this time because, I would go into Boston a lot in 1990, 1991, so we had a little bit of overlap. But I remember also in New York, in the West Village, there was a store that was exactly that. I remember there was an oil called Rain. There was one called Sweet Pea, things like
Sweet
that.
Pea. Yeah, totally.
And I put something together, and I remember thinking it was really amazing. Although if I smelled it now, I know that I wouldn't think that about it. But at the time, I felt so proud that I made something like that.
I mean, I love that. And honestly, if you smelled that blend, that Sweet Pea Rain blend today, it would bring you back to that moment in the East Village so powerfully that it might not be as elegant or sophisticated or evolved as a lot of the fragrances you currently wear, but emotionally, it would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. And actually, I didn't know if we were going to talk about this, but the company that one of the businesses that we bought our oils from was called Nectarine. They were up in the San Francisco area. And Rain, it was a trademark of theirs, China Rain. We ordered Sweet Pea, Pikaki. I run that business now as well. About 4 years ago, I took that business on from the original owners, the Saunders sisters, who are amazing. So it's just crazy how the world has evolved over time.
And it makes sense. Well, obviously, the business is in good hands if you are now leading that. It makes sense.
It's crazy. It's a wholesale for individual perfumers.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. So you get to California and you set up shop and you started making custom perfumes for clients out west.
Yes and no. I did not set up shop per se. I had a toolbox from Sears that I put 100 half ounce and 1 ounce bottles of all my different materials. And I had some customers that had lived, when I was in Boston, because Newbury Street was so traveled, I had people that were from Los Angeles that would come in. And so I got all of their, not email, because that wasn't around yet, but all their addresses. And I did an actual a postcard when I got here. I'm here and I can do custom fragrances here. And then I had my toolbox and I would go anywhere. Like I'd walk up La Brea, I'd walk up Melrose, I'd go into stores, I would set up at farmers markets, like anywhere people would let me bring my oils. I would say, I'm doing custom fragrance. And when I first landed here, everyone was talking about Fred Siegel as the place to be.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was 24 years old. I had had a business for 2 years, so I thought, I know everything. I'm fabulous.
Well, you did.
And not really. Looking back now, I'm like, oh my God, what I had was chutzpah. That's what I had.
Well, that feeling when you're in your mid-20s, come on.
Yeah, you just know.
Yeah.
So everyone said, you have to go to Fred Siegel, you have to go to Fred Siegel. And I was living in LA. So I made an appointment to meet with the owner of Apothea at Fred Siegel on Melrose and Crescent Heights, whose name was Ron Robinson, is Ron Robinson. And I went in for an interview where he thought he was interviewing someone to work at the store.
Yeah.
And I went in with my toolbox saying, like, you need to give me 300 square feet of your space. It would be so good for you. I'm doing these custom experiences. They're sensual and they're spiritual. And he was like, okay, and how many can you do an hour? And I was like, oh, one-on-one. It's very exclusive. And he said, and what do you charge for that? And I was like, $125. And he was like, so how about you work for me for like $8.25 an hour? You could be my fragrance expert. We'll see how that goes. And I thought, okay, I needed a job. I had no idea. It was the best education. It's like working with Luckyscent. Working at Apothea I learned about Jean Laporte, which became Lartisan, Antonius Flowers. I don't know if you remember that brand.
Yeah.
He had Creed. He had these incredible independent brands.
Yeah.
Gendarme. Do you remember?
We still sell Gendarme.
Yeah. That I had no idea that you could sell a bottle of perfume. I grew up on Long Island. Like I didn't know you could have a bottle of perfume for $300, and I realized why Ron said that, over time. I was like, oh, I get it. I get it now. But to Ron Robinson's credit, I had my oils in my car. He let me bring him to my Volkswagen and do a custom fragrance in the parking lot of Fred Siegel when he hired me. And he is now like family to me, and we still work with him to this day. We do his manufacturing. I've designed a couple of his fragrances over the years. But I did work there. I worked there for almost a year and had an incredible education.
Oh man, I'm telling you. I've been asked this sometimes, like, hey, I really want to get into perfume. How do I start? How do I get involved? Because it's not like you can just enroll in a program, although there are programs now. There weren't like 15, 20 years ago, of course. And certainly not before that. And my simple piece of advice is sell perfume, like go to your local department store and try to get a job at the perfume counter. You'll learn a lot.
Oh, 100%. I've said the same. And that's also why we've been such a good funnel with Luckyscent too, because when I have people that are working with me, I've always said the best education I got was working at Fred Siegel and then later at Planet Blue. That was the store in Malibu. Yeah. Because I got to come in contact with these incredible brands, but also I got to find out what customers were looking for and how they responded to materials.
Yeah, yeah. It's really revealing to see how people respond to perfume, how they work with perfume, how it works into their life. And it's very intimate and it's different for everyone. So it's just so interesting to see that and just how many different angles you can take to get into perfume.
Exactly. And there's no straight path. I mean, you can look at a straight path like, oh, I worked at a fragrance house and then I went through their program and then, or I went to a perfume school in France. Like but now with the rise of artisan and indie perfume, which I think we've seen, both of us have seen come up, there's so many ways to get there, by taking it on, by self-education, by working with other volunteering, working at fragrance stores, reading. There's so much material out there now. Absolutely. But practice, really, you have to practice with materials.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah, you got to put the hours in.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, you've made so many fragrances, bespoke fragrances for other people, but also fragrances for other brands. And would you say you have an overall approach that's very Sarah Horowitz-Thran?
Yes, I take the same approach with my private label customers when they're looking to launch a brand that I do with my individual customers. And that is, it has to speak to you.
Yeah.
I understand. And with a brand, they're often thinking about who their customer will be. But when they're in the development process, I was like, okay, you are ultimately it has to resonate with you.
Yes.
So I take a very holistic approach. I really do. I want to know who the visionary is, what emotionally, what resonates.
Yeah.
What fragrances, of course, benchmarks are always important.
Yeah.
But also just emotionally and spiritually, like it sounds so California, and we'll talk about that. But I do. I feel like if the fragrance does not resonate with the visionary, whether it's the individual who's going to wear it or the visionary of the brand, then don't make it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I feel.
Absolutely. And when creating your own fragrances, you're basically elaborating on your own stories and your own point of view. So now you're not talking about resonating with someone else's vision and story. So how do you tap into that? Do you think of a story you want to tell and then create the fragrance?
It's so funny because it's infinitely harder.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
I find it easier when I'm working with a client.
Yeah.
I know when we're done. Like I can smell like, okay, it's balanced. It's working with your body chemistry. I could see the light go on in your eyes. Like I know we're here.
Right.
When I'm working on my own, I'm like, oh, but I could just add a little more and then a little more. And then what if we, because the possibilities seem endless. But, the evolution of my brands sort of tells that story. Like Perfect Gardenia we were smelling earlier, that was my very first fragrance. And I didn't intend on having a brand.
Yeah.
Because my passion was, I'm just going to do custom fragrances.
Oh, I'm smelling it now, by the way. That's why I make that sigh noise. It's so pretty. I love me a good indolic white floral, and that's exactly what we get.
That's what this is, and it's a classic. It smells like a true gardenia. And the reason I developed it is because, as you know, and I'm sure as your listeners know, the gardenia doesn't yield an essential oil.
Right.
So any gardenia you smell is the creation of a perfumer using both aroma molecules as well as natural materials. Yeah. And so I had done fragrance journeys where, my client were doing this emotional thing and they would say, oh, my mother wore a gardenia in her hair. And when I smell it, it brings me back to this moment in childhood. And so it was important to me to have a nature identical gardenia. So I bought a gardenia plant and I worked with my materials.
Now, where are we? In California now? Or?
Malibu.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I lived in a trailer in Malibu.
Perfect.
I mean, it was a pretty awesome
Well, you make it sound
place.
so glam.
Well, it was a very crazy period of time. I was Fred Siegel, the actual human being named Fred Siegel, who was amazing, had a park in Malibu called Peace Park. It was 240 acres, but it had like 5 dwellings on it. And one of them was like this incredible, like large home that they could do retreats at. And it was a home that there was another piece there where Fred lived. And then there was a yurt near me and then my trailer. And it was a crazy time. It was like a mile from the gate to where my trailer was.
Oh my God. I'm waiting for the movie of this to come out.
It was crazy. And I would design, people would come there for custom fragrance, which was amazing. Like I'd have to drive up to the top of the driveway to lead them back down through this crazy thing to get to the trailer. Yeah. But I did fragrance journeys there. Yeah. And so I brought this gardenia plant into my trailer with my oils and everything. And I would smell the plant, and I would work with my materials. And there's actually a hint of patchouli in this.
Okay.
We were talking about patchouli earlier because I wanted to get the earth that it grows in. Yeah. I use a touch of freesia and bergamot for the green, for the leaves and the stem, and then the white velvety, like that indolic, what you were saying, like the jasmine, the gardenia accord with the little tuberose, to get that full-bodied gardenia scent.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm also smelling a little bit of tea, and maybe that's coming from freesia.
I think it's the freesia and the bergamot because it evokes that Earl Grey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a touch of vanilla too, because I love vanilla. To give the creaminess of the
I'm actually
petals.
finding some of your secrets. So Pichuli is one of them.
And so is vanilla.
So is vanilla.
Yeah.
Definitely. Also, we'll get into this when we start smelling some of your other fragrances. I feel that you handle musk in a way that's very specifically you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a signature. Like there's a musk accord that I love it smells like skin, like naked skin, like veil, perfect veil. But all of them, well, not all of them have the patchouli, but almost all of my musk accords have a touch of vanilla underneath.
Ooh, actually, you just mentioned Perfect Veil, and I think for Luckyscent and Scent Bar, from your brand, that's our top seller.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are faithful to that scent.
It makes me happy.
Yeah, for decades, they keep buying it again and again. And it is a veil of scent, and that's a very musk thing to do.
Yep.
But I love the touch of citrus in that lemon and bergamot just gives it this sparkle.
I wanted it to be, this again, I designed this in 97.
Okay.
And thank you so much. And beautiful. It has not changed, this skin scent thing wasn't really happening. Yeah. It's got like that hint of softness, but it's Florida lemon. It's got that brightness, and then the bergamot, Italian bergamot, to give that brightness up top. And then it's got that sheer softness. It's a musk accord, but with a hint of vanilla and sandalwood.
Okay. Oh, I've smelled this on so many people. Musks are amazing. And any musk wearer knows why, because they stay on you forever.
Yep.
They just project, even when you don't know they're projecting.
Yeah.
So you always smell so attractive to other people.
That makes me happy. This is our bestseller still across the board in all channels. Although the Now, which we could smell later, that seems to be our bestseller in the Evolution. But Perfect Veil has had a life of its own.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh, I swear by this in terms of musk. I love this. So we were talking about your Gardinia fragrance, Perfect Gardenia. Let's jump over to something you worked on for another brand. The brand is called Kiehl.
Yep.
And now, it's a very popular fragrance. A lot of people know Kiehl. And we have this on the Gardenia shelf at Scent Bar. And there is some crossover between your Perfect Gardenia and Kiehl. Now, is this something that the client wanted because she liked your Perfect Gardenia so much?
Well, yes and no. The woman that designed this, her name was Gay Straza. She's amazing. She was a visionary of her brand. She grew up in Hawaii, or had, I don't think she grew up in Hawaii, but she had a lot of experience in Hawaii. Yeah. And she wanted to capture that true Hawaiian experience. And she was in Malibu. So by then I had left Fred Siegel and I was working at Planet Blue down in Cross Creek, and she had a little store there called Boo Bayou. And she came to me, she either read something or she had been there and smelled the Gardenia, but I would set up my oils outside of the store in Cross Creek in the parking lot and do custom fragrances there. So I met her there, and she wanted to do a fragrance that she could sell out of her store. And so she hired me to develop a fragrance, and I worked with her. She had a clear vision, and we created this, many different formulas, but she was very clear on what she wanted. Yes. And so that ultimate fragrance became Kiehl.
This is beautiful. Actually, smelling it now, after just smelling Perfect Gardenia, they're quite different. There's much more sunlight in Kiehl.
Yeah.
And I remember wearing this fragrance and coming upon this realization, wait a minute, is this Gardenia or is it lily? Because I get this beautiful, spicy, almost Easter lily smell from this.
Yes, it does have that lily accord. It's got a gorgeous white floral. It's very addictive. I've heard over the years, we made it by hand for quite a while, and she just grew so much that she, or the brand actually, it's grown tremendously. Yeah. But yes, the way it wears on skin is addictive. Yeah. People, I know it has a large following. It makes me happy that they did as well as they did with it. It
absolutely does. And then when I wear Kiehl, after the beautiful lilies and Gardenia, then we go into the trademark Sarah Horowitz-Thran musk. I feel that's very much part of this dry down.
It is definitely there. Again, I want to reiterate that when I do work for another company, they are the visionary, and I always see my role as translating their vision, like distilling their vision into a formula.
Yeah.
And so I feel like with that fragrance in particular, she was very clear what she wanted to create, and it was an amazing experience because that also was in that same place in Malibu on the park.
Yeah.
And I remember them saying, "If we grow, will you be able to grow?" And I was like,
Put me in
I'm
catch.
here, And they did an incredible job with the brand, the
That's
packaging.
incredible.
I don't do anything with the packaging or marketing. They did all of those things.
It's cool that you were both these Malibu girls. You're coming literally from the same place. So when she articulated her story, I bet you knew exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah, although it took, when I create fragrance, again, private label or individual, we go through a process of smelling and distilling and finding what resonates so that the client is the one that really chooses the materials, and then I balance them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, let's backtrack a little bit. Growing up, were there any perfumes? What role did perfume have in your life?
So, growing up, I never thought like, oh, I'm going to be a perfumer. I didn't even know it was an option, like of a thing to do. But fragrance always played a role, of course.
Yeah.
My grandmother wore youth dew religiously.
Don't get me started on youth dew.
I love it. Like, it has such an important role in my life. Like, she wore it religiously. And then my mother wore Shalimar, which if you look at the skeletal structure, you could see the direct lineage from youth dew to Shalimar.
Definitely.
And so to me, the epitome of elegance and sophistication was these amber, rich, warm, sexy fragrances that my mom would wear. She didn't wear it every day. It was like getting ready. I remember being little and seeing her at the vanity and like putting it on before she went out. So then my first fragrance was Coco by Mademoiselle.
Of course.
Which again, you can see like the lineage between the link, and I loved that fragrance. Although, of course, I loved, I babysat at a house across the street where the mom had opium.
Of course.
Like all of it, like the body care, the cream, the oil, the perfume. And this is so awful. I probably shouldn't even say this, but like they would go out and I'd get those kids to bed and then I would be like,
of course,
the fragrance, like it was so good.
As you should.
But if you smell Origin Story, you can see that link of like amber, patchouli, vanilla, musk.
Oh, see, I have this obsession with youth dew, and here's a little secret: I wear it.
Oh, I love it.
I wear it regularly. It's amazing.
It's so good.
So inexpensive, and there would be no opium by YSL without youth dew.
Exactly. You can see its influence. I mean,
for sure.
It was the first American perfume. Like the first, you look at what Estee Lauder did. That was the very first of like an American house putting out a fragrance, and it started as a bath oil. Which is interesting too. I know I'm going kind of in the weeds here, but if you look at the lineage of the launch of Youth Dew as a bath oil, and then you see like the 60s, that sort of like counterculture where they were wearing patchouli oil.
Yes.
But it's sort of in response, like you could see how it happened with the oil, the bath, people wearing bath oil, and then the patchouli.
Yeah. My observation about Youth Dew is that when I was a little kid, my mom had a makeup kit, and in the makeup kit, she had some loose dusting powder. And I love to smell everything as a kid.
Too.
As of
Me too.
now, I still smell everything.
Me too.
So I'd go through her makeup kit just smelling every product, and I loved the smell of that dusting powder. And when I started wearing Youth Dew as a grown-up, I thought, this smells like the dusting powder. It must smell like powder. I've said this before, so this is kind of like the Steve,
I love
old man
it.
thing.
It's new for me.
But what I'm finding out is, no, that powder smelled like perfume. It was
Yes.
highly perfumed, and there's so much patchouli in that thing.
Yep, exactly.
It's all about the patchouli.
I love it. I mean, I've always loved it. And when I started perfuming, when I was young, even in the 80s, 90s, I always loved patchouli, but it was one of those things that at the time it was very like, and it's still polarizing as a material,
Yeah.
but at the time it was like, oh, it smells like hippies. It smells like the Grateful Dead. Like it smells like that roommate that I had in college that
Right.
never showered. And I was like, okay, but if
Well,
you
you know-
use it like this,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Patchouli is one of those trigger words for some people. We know when someone comes in for perfume and they start talking about what they want and we show them things, we try not to say the P word and we try
Right.
not to say musk and we try not to say rose because people have so many preconceptions.
yeah, they have preconceived notions. Exactly.
And we know that's not the case. Sometimes you need the patchouli, even if you don't smell it per
Yeah.
se, because it does something in the structure.
Absolutely. And it can take sweetness down, can ground a fragrance. And when I talk about it, I often talk about like if you're cooking, you wouldn't use salt as the primary ingredient. It would ruin any good marinara sauce.
Yes.
But you need it. Even when you're baking cookies, there's a tiny bit of salt. So that gives the balance and that juxtaposition.
Brings out the sweetness.
Exactly.
This is so beautiful because
is
you
that?
talked about origin story.
That's my scent. Yeah.
Yeah, and how it is basically the result of your youth and your experiences with perfume. So let's talk about this because I haven't smelled this before today.
Oh,
and
that makes me.
I'm so
excited.
going to start wearing this fragrance.
Oh, I love that. So origin story is, I'm also like, I love origin stories. I love the
me too.
beginning of characters,
Yeah.
film and books and all that.
Why are we the way we are?
I love it. I can go science fiction fantasy with you on a whole other topic, but I love origin stories. So when I first walked in that very first day at Essence, I made a very simple accord. It was patchouli, spicy patchouli, natural. It was a jasmine aroma chemical, a really great musk, and jasmine, but a synthetic jasmine aroma chemical.
Okay.
But I loved it. I wore it. It became my signature. Everyone knew me by it. And over the years, I always wore it, but I wanted to evolve it. The more I learned about perfumery and materials, so I brought in Jasmine grandiflorum because it's my favorite jasmine. I put a little blood orange and yuzu in the top note. So this is the culmination of the beginning, my beginning story, the first, my gateway drug, if you will.
Yeah.
And then as I grew as a perfumer, how I made it better, like to wear it with the materials that I now know are the evolved version. That's why this brand is called Evolution.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, do I smell lavender or am I imagining
No,
that?
there's not lavender, but there is that Jasmine grandiflorum is so earthy.
Yeah.
And the yuzu is a natural, that green, it's a green citrus fruit. And that yuzu is almost like bitter herbaceous, like it has an herbaceous quality.
Yeah.
So that accord, like the jasmine yuzu, could be giving you that herbaceous, like the way lavender presents.
That's interesting. Well, maybe what we're learning is when linalool is in a fragrance, it's in so many natural things, but maybe that's what I'm picking up on.
Absolutely.
And I'm interpreting
you
it
have
as
such
lavender.
a good nose, so yeah. You do. You really do.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
Thank you.
That musk has so much character. It kind of puts me into the Kiehl's musk world, which is one of my all-time favorite musks.
And obviously something I was inspired by. From the 80s. That's been around since the 70s, I think. Yeah.
That's great stuff. If you don't have a little bottle of Kiehl's musk oil, I'm talking to the greater world, you should probably have one.
Just to have it and layer it. Layer it with other fragrances.
Absolutely. Let's jump over to something you did for another brand. This is Lori Rotkin. That's the brand. This is GothicOne. And if you ever tune into our live streams when Dana and I are on Instagram Live, it shouldn't be a shock that we talk about GothicOne a lot. This is kind of one of our staple fragrances.
I love that. And honestly, that is all credit to Lori Rotkin, who is the visionary behind that. When she came in to develop that fragrance, she had done a lot of that. She had already been blending oil. She had something that she was wearing. She's a very magical person. So she brought her materials and we worked on it together. And she really was the leader on the composition here. So we handcraft that fragrance. And she's got her exquisite jewelry line. Have you seen her jewelry?
Her jewelry is stunning.
It's insane.
Beautiful.
But that was her signature scent. in that she just wanted to bring it to the world.
Well,
So
I mean,
we
it
were
goes
able
with
to
the
do it.
aesthetic. It makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. And the talk about patchouli
Yeah.
is the sexiest patchouli.
This is boho chic.
Yes. And that also, I mean, we did that how many years ago now? Almost like 15,
Okay.
maybe a little bit
Yeah.
longer.
You know what? I think maybe even longer because when
Yeah,
I
I think
started at
longer.
Luckyscent, we already had this, and
Yeah.
I felt like it wasn't brand new. So this is my 16th year. So yeah, it's been around the
Yeah.
block. This fragrance.
Yeah, but it is ageless. You know, I mean, this fragrance is, you know, Lori just, yeah, she knew what she wanted.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to craft fragrances like this.
That vanilla today is just so delicious and so comforting.
It's interesting because gourmands are having such a moment or
Yes,
have been having
definitely.
such a moment. But this is, I mean, this has been around, but it always has a way of feeling new because
Yeah.
it's such a classic staple, like that
Yeah.
patchouli vanilla accord.
Yeah. I know.
Makes
And
me happy.
Angel, which was so groundbreaking, which was also introducing gourmand with tons of patchouli. But what I love so much about GothicOne and Gothic 2, I found this too, that when people start wearing it and it becomes their signature scent, they stay true to it. So we have many people who come in, they don't smell any other perfumes at Scent Bar. They just want a refill of their GothicOne or Gothic 2.
I love that. And Gothic 2 is a little more incensey.
The Nag Champa.
Yeah, definitely.
That kills me. I love that.
Smoky and
Just yesterday,
Sacred.
we had a customer come in, young British guy, and specifically because his mom wore Gothic 2. Can't find it in the UK. And so she said, go and get me a bottle. So we sold him a couple actually because you know she needs to stock up back in the
I
UK.
love that.
And we also have customers from France specifically who've been wearing this for years. And it's their little secret. I get my fragrance from Los Angeles. It's called GothicOne in that case. Beautiful. Once you start wearing this stuff, you can't give it up.
I love that. Yeah.
But the rest of the collection is quite different. When we go into 3 and 4, then we're getting away from the patchouli vanillas.
No, my heart is with those earthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gorgeous. Let's talk about Perfect Coconut Milk. This is from the Sarah Horowitz Perfume collection.
The perfect perfumes.
Perfect Perfumes, okay. This is a very popular one also at Scent Bar.
I love it. It's very, it's a vacation
Yeah.
in a bottle.
Yeah, this is very lying on the beach. Fantastic. I'm all slathered up with some suntan lotion.
I mean, it has the gardenia,
Yeah.
a perfect gardenia, but it also has orange blossom. But I think for me, what took it to the place that I wanted to go was it has obviously the hint of coconut
Yeah.
and like the tiniest touch of almond
Okay.
to give that milky and tonka bean in the base.
There it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I smell that. With luscious tropical florals.
I wanted it to smell like you were on the beach. Your skin was lathered in like an amazing sunscreen. So it had that coconutty, but it was warm skin, like it had been warmed by the sun. And the wind had blown through like a tropical jungle with gardenias and
Yes.
pikaki and that white floral on the breeze. So it's not focused fully on the white floral.
Oh, it's all right there. Is
Thank
this
you.
scent available as a home scent as well?
Not yet.
No, okay.
It's a good idea though. Make a
Right?
good candle.
We can peek into the future because, yeah, I kind of want my life to smell like this.
That I love that. Yeah, I think this would make an amazing candle or diffuser.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I think that's something I'm looking into now is diffusers because we're in our manufacturing business. We're doing that for clients, and I'm like, oh, I see how it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Now, from the Evolution line, what's one that I should smell?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, you smelled Origin Story, which is
I'm
my
obsessed with.
personal fragrance.
Yes.
But our best-selling fragrance in that is actually the Now, which you'll recognize my sort of musk
Yeah.
accord.
Yeah.
But this fragrance is very, it's got a fig, white amber fig. So it's kind of got this grassy green. And this one, it's just been interesting. The people that find it love it.
Yeah. Ooh.
So this has bergamot,
Yeah. Yeah.
fresh cut grass, green fig. So it's very different.
Yeah. Very transparent.
Exactly.
I
I
this
love
a
the
lot.
sheer.
Yeah. But I can already tell on skin, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has that white amber
Yeah.
note, that ambergris, ambroxan, very clean.
Yeah.
So on skin, it just dries down very like it could be your skin.
Yeah, definitely.
And aRitual is our newest fragrance.
Oh, let's smell that. Yeah, this is so great. With these transparent, sheer fragrances, what we tell people at Scent Bar is you have to put this on skin because the paper is basically just a little thumbnail sketch of it. Mm-hmm. On skin, when it starts to warm up and those big molecules start to do their thing, that's when the party happens.
Absolutely. Plus, I always explain to my clients, I love this fragrance too. Again, you'll see
Ritual?
It's called aRitual.
aRitual.
Which is sort of my LA experience.
Okay.
Again, amber, orange blossom, citrus, but sort of a woody accord in the base that gives it that. It's great on men as well as women. I mean, it's great on everybody.
Oh, this is what I want to wear today. I instantly get this.
I love that. Wear it.
Oh, I'm going
to smell it on your skin.
There's something so nicely aromatic about this. It's not cardamom, but it's giving me this kind of wonderful, cool spice and woods.
It does have that citrus pop because I wanted to have that. When I moved here, it has the sandalwood, cedarwood of, do you remember the bookstore, The Bodhi Tree?
Of course I do.
So I wanted to have that in there, like that incensey, sort of smoky sandalwood, but also the orange blossoms because the Bodhi Tree used to have citrus blossoms that, trees outside. So that experience of being in that magical time too of life where everything is possible. I felt like LA was just a sea of possibility.
Yeah. There's something about that sun in LA that makes it all possible for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
From the Perfect series, let's talk about your vanilla because we just had a little chat about gourmands. Mm-hmm. So what is happening with this?
So,
fantastic.
Thank you. This I designed, this is something that I love vanilla, as you know.
Yeah.
And I had done the Gardenia. That was the first fragrance in Perfect. But I wanted to do a vanilla that was different, not like candy vanilla. So it has a hint of tobacco. It has a hint of course, my musk accord, amber, and then blood orange. That tart, sweet blood orange. It's super bright.
Oh, it's so nice. It has that use of musk that I associate with the different time periods. So when I was a little kid, we're talking the 70s, I remember our neighbors, if they had older kids, like teenage neighbors, and if they wore perfume, I feel like this kind of scent would be coming from their bedrooms. Definitely. And I love that. There's something so glam about the idea of a late 60s, early 70s musk.
Smoky too.
Yeah. Super chic. And I know that this is probably a phantom note that I'm creating from the other things that are coming together, but lilac.
I love that you said that, but no, there is, but I feel where you're at with that. It's the musk accord, it's got all those big molecules.
It has that really pretty powdery texture.
Yeah. And the hint of vanilla. Yeah. I do have a signature. I didn't realize it until years in that I was like, oh, I have a signature.
Right.
I'm doing a thing. Yeah.
I'm making perfumes until they smell nice to me. What do they all have in common? Exactly. Guess what?
I know what it needs.
You got a signature.
Yeah.
That's
vanilla patchouli musk.
Now, you had mentioned diffusers and working on some other brands and their home fragrance line. So this is really interesting. This is a more recent development in your business enterprise. So you are also a fill house.
Yes.
Now, for people not in the perfume business, what does that mean exactly?
We do contract manufacturing for fine fragrance. So my business has evolved tremendously from one individual bottle of perfume for one person to now I have, it's crazy to even hear me say it, but we have 2 buildings, both 10,000 square feet, and we do manufacturing and warehouse, and I have space for teaching classes and events as well. But what contract manufacturing is when you have a perfumer or a brand that has a vision, and they may not. It started off where it was only clients that I was the perfumer on the brand,
Right.
where they were like, oh, but now I don't want to fill it myself, and there were no filling houses that were doing small runs,
Right.
So they would say, can I just send you my bottles? And then, like, since you're making the perfume, can you just fill the bottles and I'll just buy it like a retailer? And I was saying earlier that I'm self-funded. I've always been self-funded. So my line often was like, in my head, I was like, oh, they'll pay for that. Okay, I can figure that out. Like, just say yes and figure it out. So I started offering that service, like, sure, we'll make the perfume. And then I have scales, I have pipettes, I have an alcohol license. I can fill your bottles for you. And we started doing that in like 2014, 2015 for my own clients. And then around 2016, 2017, I was sent a client for consulting, which is something I also do, where people are working on a fragrance with a larger house and they're just not loving it yet.
Yeah.
So they'll pay me like an hourly rate and they'll sit at the fragrance organ, we'll smell together and tweak. And I'll say, okay, this is how you communicate with your fragrance house. Here's how I can help you write the brief.
Right.
This fragrance actually you're questioning it, but it's great. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
This one needs some work. So that's another thing that, it's another source of revenue and something I love to do. And so I had a client that was referred by a fragrance house. She had 4 fragrances she was launching, and she was self-funded herself, and she couldn't find a filler that would do just 500 bottles of fragrance, because most filling houses start at 2,500, but some will do 1,000.
Right.
But that's per fragrance. So if you're launching a fragrance, a collection that has 4 fragrances, that means 4,000 bottles.
That's a lot of juice.
So she had said, I have 4 fragrances, but I want to do 500 of each and no one will do it. Do you know anyone? And of course I said, I can do that.
Yeah.
So we started filling for her, and I wasn't the perfumer. She had the fragrances sent by her perfume house. Yeah. And we manufactured for her, and she started growing. And so we started growing. Yeah. And then fragrance houses said, oh, we're working with there's so many artisan brands now. But then when it's time to fill, they don't know anyone that'll fill, 150 bottles, 300 bottles. So they started referring. And so that piece of my business really started growing 2019, 2020, even through the pandemic. We grew, do you want to hear all? I'll give you the cliff note, but essentially, one of my clients that had started with 500, she grew tremendously, got into Sephora, and then said, hey, we're going to have an order of 27,000 units, but you're only going to have 5 weeks to do it. Can you do it? And I had like 3,000 square feet by then, but one machine. I had 5 employees, and I was like, okay, my husband and I will work nights and we'll just keep filling bottles. I was like, okay, my answer is always just say yes and figure it out later. Yeah. So I said yes. And then that order doubled to 57,000 units, but the same timeline. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. So I ended up meeting with a company not too far from me, about a half-hour away, that we worked together, and they could subcontract, where I would go down, I would do the blending of the perfume, oversee, but they had equipment and a team, and I managed the client, I made the perfume, I oversaw the production, but they did it at their facility.
Okay, yeah.
And we started working in that way, and then my fragrance house partner said, oh, you can do up to 50,000, you could do 10,000? I said, yeah, I could do that. And so last year, and it sounds crazy even when I say it, but basically over the last year and a half, I had worked with this company, worked with their employees, worked very closely with their production manager. Yeah. And we worked out an arrangement, and I acquired their business over the summer of this past year, 2024. Yeah. And now I bought all their equipment, and I opened up my own facility, and all the employees came with me.
God, yeah.
And I now have 20,000 square feet for
So-
contract manufacturing.
This is what I'm
my
talking
God.
about when I say all roads lead back to Sarah Horowitz-Thran.
It's-
Because now you're so involved in production. So even brands that have nothing to do with your name per
Nothing
se.
to do with me.
Without your work and your know-how, I don't think Southern California would be this little hub of perfume production as it is now. So you've left a mark in so many different ways,
Steve.
which actually leads me to my next question, because you've been here since the very beginning of Perfume in LA. It's changed a lot. It's
Yes.
grown a lot. Of course, a big part because of your efforts and your talent. But how have you seen the whole landscape change?
Oh my God, it has changed so much. I mean, I remember, so you're familiar, of course, with the IAO, and I was a founding board member there, and their first awards, which was a decade ago. So that really, like, it had, it's slowly building. I was doing fragrance, but I felt like when I moved here in the 90s, I felt like I was speaking, when people asked what I did, they looked at me like they had, like I said something in a completely different language. Like no one understood what I was talking about. And then I'd try to explain it, and then they'd be like, is that a sex thing? Like you were rubbing oils on people? Like what's going on? It was crazy. And then, Franco and Adam and Luckyscent started evolving, and there was a community with Sniffapalooza.
Yeah.
But I remember when the IAO had the very first awards, I was a presenter, and I remember saying, like, it was very emotional. Like I felt like I was speaking another language. I was like in a foreign land. And for the first time, and that was 10 years ago. So that was like 2013.
Yeah.
I finally feel like I'm meeting people that speak the same language as me. And that it's that we're connecting here.
Yeah.
And it's just been exponential since then, like in the last 10 years. I think it started with indie perfume and artisan and bespoke.
Yeah.
But you're now, like, the internet has had a huge amount to do with it, like connecting people, TikTok, Instagram, the way that they're talking about you in particular. Like you're one of the few voices that are really like incredibly knowledgeable and can speak to this in a world of just people just talking out there, not always knowing where they're coming from. So I think the landscape has changed tremendously. I think California has been a hub of creativity always.
Yeah.
Certainly. A lot of artists are here in many different walks of life.
Absolutely.
And perfumery, for me, has always been my expression of art. There's people that sing, people that make music, people that perform, in theater and film, people that paint. My husband is an artist, like he does drawing, and now he works with plants, but he does these incredible plantscapes, So I think art finds its way through a person.
Yes.
And I think that California, and LA in particular, has always been a hub that has drawn artists. And I think perfumery is an expression. It's like this invisible art form that speaks to people about who you are before you even open your mouth. You meet a stranger and you're wearing a fragrance, and they're going to get a sense of who you are before you say anything. Yeah. So to me, perfumery is this pure art form that is so creative, so expressive, so transformative, so emotional.
Yes.
And I feel like California attracts the person that is attracted to that, to design that. So I think that was a long way of answering your question. I don't even know if I did, but
it's so fascinating, and I agree with you. I've seen it. There's such a community at Scent Bar, and you're very much part of this community too. That's incredibly creative and incredibly generous and supportive, which is beautiful because not all creative industries are quite like that.
No, it's interesting, and our industry has pockets of all the different things that you find. But I have loved being a pioneer here. Mandy Aftel also, she was the first perfume friend I made out here.
Up in Berkeley.
And she has, hers book was one of the first books I ever read when I was back in Boston. It's been amazing to watch the evolution of people coming to find this art form and feel like I can do this, or I can at least play in this world, you know?
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because I have one final question for you, and it's a two-parter. A lot of people ask, how do I get involved? This is so fascinating to me. I didn't know this world existed, but I don't know how to learn it. And what advice would you have? Second, I know personally many people who have worked for you and have been your students, and that is such a valuable thing to actually have education from someone who is so knowledgeable, who's seen it all. So I want to know, how can one become your student or your intern? And how does one pursue perfume if, let's say, you're not in California and you want education?
Okay, first of all, thank you for all of that. I think what we touched on earlier, like literally working in a fragrance store, reading how I started, because I am not classically trained. And for years I had that, the imposter syndrome of like, when I first moved out here, I wrote letters to fragrance, like handwritten, because it was before email, like to perfume houses, like, hi, I'm a perfumer. I blend oils. Who can I meet with? Who can I show? Yeah. And I was persistent enough that Man Fragrance House and Belmay, which was acquired by aRitual, anyway, they had two perfumers. They were like, someone take this girl to lunch. She keeps calling and emailing me. And that's how I got my first working in fragrance labs. So I think persistence, whether it's perfume or any other that passion that you have, persistence, stubborn, but reading everything you can. There's so many different walks in it. And then practice. Yeah. Buy materials. Someplace like the Perfumer's Apprentice did not exist when I was coming up. But it's invaluable. Yeah. Someplace like the IAO that has online courses, that has beginners courses, that if you can come to LA and do like Friends with Pipettes and you come in and play, like those did not exist when I was starting, but those are invaluable. For me, we are right now, like I said, I'm 6 months into this new expanse of the business that I have, but we did set up a space for teaching. I've taught one class, and I'm going to be putting classes coming for 2025 in person in my studio. And I think, again, like I was not self-taught, and the perfumers that you're talking about that apprenticed me, they apprenticed someone that was self-taught. And a lot of them are now, they've gone on, like Ashley, she went to school in Gras after she left me. Like she knows, the student has surpassed the master in that way, she's taken a lot more of the molecules. Like she knows a lot more about the raw materials in that way. Yeah. So I think if you have a passion for it, pursue it. Read everything you can, get materials, whether it's a perfumer's apprentice or you start getting oils and playing. Yeah. I think there's no substitute for practice. Yes. And for doing. Yeah. Reading is one thing, getting materials and putting them together is something completely different.
Isn't that the case for all art forms? Sure, you might have a little bit of talent, whatever, but it's not until you put the hours in and you start making mistakes that you start realizing how something good can come from all of this.
Steve, we could do a part 2 just on all the mistakes I've made. We could do an hour on every mistake I've made that I've learned from. But yes, it's by making mistakes and getting back up, and this goes for everything in life, that you learn and you get better.
Absolutely. It's really sweet. I've seen some college students. I remember a few years back, there were a bunch of students at Occidental, and then on the weekends, they'd come into Scent Bar, just the small group, and smell and sniff away. And right now, there's a group of students at USC who are forming this kind of perfume appreciation society. I love that. Yeah, it's so cool. So it's a whole little community in their college so that they can smell perfume and talk about. And I don't know if any of them are going to go on and try to make, but they should. Yeah. And let's say someone wants to know how they can learn from you. Will this information be on sarahhorowitzperfume.com?
Not yet, but it will be. I mean, we're working on the classes because, as I said, like I'm 54. But I feel like I've just started a brand new business in many ways because this business is really exciting and new. But the teaching is my passion. I taught at FITM for many years.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
And I love it. So yes, coming soon, I will have that. I have the 2025 calendar up. Yeah. And I do teach occasionally at the IEO as well.
Yes. And you are contactable through your website.
Yes, of course.
Actually, we send a lot of people your way because a lot of people, if they don't know Scent Bar and haven't come to the store, assume that we're a place where we make custom perfumes. Like that's the most common mistake.
Yeah.
We get this pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So we tell people, no, but we do know a professional perfumer who will do exactly that.
Yep.
And people have these ideas of doing perfume parties,
which we have a
events,
space for.
and you're equipped
my
to
new
do that.
facility. Yeah, we have because I have I don't do all of them. Like I see being very transparent. Like I take on 4 or 5 clients for private label a year.
Yeah.
Just very focused. It has to be the right fit for both myself and the client. Because there's a lot of other things, but I have an incredible team that I've trained that does like the events that we do. And, we do corporate events, like they'll come to you, or we do in our studio, we have a space that we can have a venue for events. And there I have perfumers I've trained that come in and do custom blending.
Oh, fantastic. Sarah, I feel like I could just sit here and talk to you for so many more hours. Maybe we need to do some more episodes, but I can't thank you enough for your beautiful work, for making Los Angeles such a beautifully scented place.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being with me today and chatting.
Steve, it's always amazing to see you, but what a pleasure today has been. And for Franco and Adam and the founders of Luckyscent and for the whole team, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to come and share with you. I really am.
Thanks. And for everyone listening, please chime in. What do you want to hear us talk about? There's so many aspects involved in perfume, and we want to know what you're curious about, and we will try to do what we can to follow your directions. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.